was he still waiting for someone who was never coming back? Maybe because no one had told his heart the world had changed. So Eli stayed in that cold stairwell, listening to every door, lifting his head at every sound, still believing that one familiar voice might return for him. But as the days passed, the silence only grew heavier, and the people in the building slowly began to realize this was no ordinary lost cat. By the time anyone really noticed him, he had already learned how to make himself small. He stayed in the corner of a stairwell in an old New York apartment building, pressed close to the wall as if he believed that taking up less space might somehow keep him safe. He wasn't dirty. He didn't look wild. He looked like a cat who belonged somewhere, a cat who had once known the shape of a home, the sound of a familiar voice, the comfort of being expected. And yet for days no one came for him. At first he was just a mystery passed between neighbors, a quiet sighting, a whisper in the hallway, a note left in the lobby asking the kind of question people hope has a simple answer. Is anyone missing a cat? It should have been the beginning of a quick reunion, the kind of small city story that resolves itself by sunset. But the days kept passing, and the cat remained in the stairwell, watching from a distance with the wide, uncertain eyes of someone who no longer understood where he was supposed to go, so the building began to answer him in the only ways it could. Someone left out food. Someone else placed a bowl of water nearby. Then came a small bed, then another. Soon there were signs of care on every floor, little offerings from people who may not have known his name, but could not bear to see him face the silence alone. That is what makes kindness so moving sometimes. It does not always arrive with certainty. It does not wait until every fact is known. Sometimes it begins with nothing more than the feeling that something fragile should not have to suffer by itself. From the outside, it may have looked like a timid tabby hiding in a stairwell, but to the people passing by those doors, he was becoming something else, a question, a responsibility, a quiet heartbreak they were all beginning to share. Then another note appeared, and with it, the truth. Someone believed the cat belonged to a resident in apartment 3B, and that resident had passed away. In an instant, everything changed. He was not lost in the ordinary sense. He had not wandered too far from home or slipped through an open door by accident. He had been left behind by something far more final. The person he had belonged to was simply no longer there to come back for him. And somehow, that made the stairwell feel even quieter. You can imagine him there if you try. The muted light, the narrow flights of stairs, the doors opening and closing around him, footsteps passing, voices fading, and a cat who may have still been waiting for one sound that would never return. By then, the neighbors were no longer just observing him. They were trying, in all their imperfect and human ways, to catch him before he fell any deeper into that waiting. One apartment took him in temporarily, giving him a room instead of a stairwell, a door that closed gently behind him instead of a corner he had to defend. It was only meant to be for a few days, but even a few days can matter when a creature has been surviving on uncertainty. A local rescue stepped in too, trying to secure something more stable, more lasting. And then, in a turn that almost felt impossible, another neighbor in the same building offered to foster him long-term, not across the city, not with strangers far away. Right there under the same roof where his life had already been unraveling in public, another door opened. There is something profoundly tender about that. The idea that his second chance did not begin with a dramatic rescue or a distant escape, but with a nearby neighbor saying, in effect, "Let him come here. Let him stay." Let him be safe with us. The cat would eventually be given a name to carry into this next chapter, Eli. And like so many animals who survive more than they can explain, Eli did not step into safety all at once. He did not instantly bloom into confidence just because the worst part was over. Healing rarely works that way. Not for people, not for animals, not for any heart that has learned to brace itself against sudden loss. So Eli stayed cautious. During the day, he remained shy, still studying rooms before trusting them, still moving with the quiet hesitancy of a soul that had been startled by life. But at night, when the building softened and the world finally quieted down, another side of him began to appear. He played. He explored. He let a little bit of his curiosity return. And then there was the way he responded to affection. For all his shyness, Eli still leaned into a gentle hand. He still purred when someone scratched under his chin. He still craved closeness in that unmistakable way animals do when love has not disappeared from them, only been interrupted. That may be one of the saddest and most beautiful parts of this story, because it tells us that before all of this, before the stairwell and the notes and the uncertainty, Eli had been loved well enough to remember how tenderness should feel. The rescue continued searching for the other cat linked to the same apartment, hoping there might still be time for another miracle. But when the truth finally surfaced, it was devastating. Eli's sibling had been taken to a shelter and, due to a medical condition likely connected to cancer, had been euthanized. It is the kind of news that seems to dim the whole story for a moment, because grief, once it enters a room, rarely arrives alone. It brings echoes. One loss reveals another. One unanswered question opens the door to a sorrow no one was prepared to carry. And yet, even there, the story did not collapse into hopelessness. Eli was healthy. Eli was still here. Eli still had that cautious, surviving little spirit inside him, and the people around him made a quiet decision, whether they said it aloud or not. Whatever had happened before, whatever had already been lost, they would not let his future be shaped only by grief. So his days in apartment 2C became the beginning of something gentler, not a fairy tale, not a perfect ending polished smooth for comfort, just something real. A timid cat learning the geography of a new room, new footsteps, new voices, new shadows in the evening, a safe place to sleep. Food that arrived reliably, hands that moved slowly enough not to frighten him. Patience, offered over and over, without asking him to heal on command. That kind of care can look small from the outside, a chin scratch, a toy moving softly across the floor at night, a home kept calm enough for a frightened animal to settle. But for a creature whose world has been broken apart, small consistencies are not small at all. They are how life becomes livable again. And maybe that is why this story lingers. Not because it is loud, not because it is extraordinary in the way the world usually measures extraordinary, but because it reveals something deeply human in the middle of ordinary urban life. Behind all those apartment doors were people living their separate routines, carrying their own private worries, passing each other in hallways without knowing much at all. And still, when this small life appeared in need, they made room for him. A bowl here, a bed there, a temporary home, a foster offer, a rescue call, a little more time, a little more mercy. Sometimes that is how salvation really looks. Not as one grand gesture, but as many gentle ones, gathering around the vulnerable until they can stand again. Somewhere in this story, there is also the quiet ache of the person Eli lost. Someone who had once shared a home with him, someone whose absence set all of this in motion. We do not know every detail of that life, and perhaps we do not need to. What matters is written in Eli himself, in the way he seeks affection, in the way he still wants closeness, in the way everyone who met him could tell he had once been deeply cared for. It is clear that he was loved. And maybe there is comfort in believing that love does not disappear as quickly as a body does. Maybe it lingers in habits, in trust, in the memory of being held, in the instincts that survive long after language would fail. Maybe that is what the neighbors were really protecting when they gathered around Eli. Not just a cat, but the last visible thread of a bond that had not deserved to end in loneliness. Now, he's still adjusting, still shy in daylight, still learning that safety can remain, even after it has once vanished without warning. But he is no longer curled up in a stairwell corner, waiting for a door that will not open. Now there is another door, another home, another chance to be known. And maybe that is enough for now. Not certainty, not closure, just enough warmth to loosen fear, just enough gentleness to keep moving forward, just enough love offered by strangers to remind one small surviving heart that being left behind is not always the end of the story. If this story stayed with you, I'd love to hear what part touched you most in the comments. And if you want more quiet, heartfelt stories like this, you can like the video and subscribe. Sometimes the smallest lives leave the deepest echo.